Hello and welcome to Good Morning Thailand. It's a bright Tuesday morning and joining me again today is Mike.
Hey, good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Mike. Tim once again is on holiday. He will be joining us shortly, but let me just introduce you to our show today. We will be talking today, Mike, about expat life in Thailand and how it has changed over the years. We will be looking at the Paralympics Olympians who have returned to Thailand, and we'll also be looking a little bit into COVID situation in Thailand and Hua Hin reopening on the August 1st without quarantine. So you're joining us here on Good Morning Thailand. Hope you enjoy the show. Right, you're watching Good Morning Thailand with me, Jay, and Mike. I'd just like to plug our other shows in case you didn't know. We have our daily news, Thailand News headline show, Thailand News Today, coming out in the evenings around 6 p.m. with Jet. So if you want to catch up on Thailand news stories from yesterday, you can watch our video on the top left over here. And also we have our comment section, Thaiger Bites, it's called. Thaiger Bites, where we address your comments and your questions directly to you, where you get a chance to ask us any questions regarding all of our shows. So don't miss that show as well on the top left here, I believe. Right, on with the show. So, Mike, let me just start today's show by giving you a quick COVID update in Thailand. Today in Thailand, we had 241 fatalities, 13,821 cases, 518 from prisons. 16,737 people have been released from care, and currently still 145,465 people still in care. Now, the amount of COVID deaths are still quite high, Mike. However, the number of infections are going down, and more importantly, people in serious condition, 4,487, that number is slightly going down more and more every day, as well as the people on artificial respiration has gone down under 1,000 after a very long time, and it is currently at 985. So good signs that Thailand is heading towards a better direction and better situation regarding COVID.
Yeah, it's very positive that the numbers are going down. I think that's what we want to hear. Want numbers to go down, things start getting back to normal, things start opening. So I think we're optimistic that hopefully, this wave we've peaked, and hopefully we'll see a decline in infections and people who are critically ill. That would be the main drivers.
Right, Mike, just in case you didn't know, and for our viewers, the Paralympics Thailand team has arrived in the Phuket Sandbox and are currently doing the 14-day quarantine. Here are some pictures of our Paralympians. The Thai Paralympics team has won 5 gold medals, 5 silver and 8 bronze medals at Tokyo 2020, which ended on Sunday, including Mr. Pongsakorn Payo, who claimed golds in 3 different races in wheelchair racing. They were greeted by government, sports and local officials, as well as Her Royal Highness the Princess, who was a former national athlete in badminton and equestrian. Here at the Thaiger team, we'd all like to welcome our heroes back from the Paralympics and congratulate you on your success. It's now time for the top stories with Caitlin. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, it's Kate with the Thaiger here with this morning's top headlines. Protesters gathered at Bangkok's Asok intersection yesterday, calling on Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha to resign. For the past year, pro-democracy groups have been pushing for the Prime Minister to step down. But with the latest wave of COVID-19 surpassing more than 1 million infections, along with a limited supply of vaccines, protesters now say Prayut should resign due to mismanagement during the COVID-19 pandemic. Protesters gathered in a so-called car mob, driving their motorbikes to the protest site, honking their horns, and raising their hands in a 3-finger salute, a symbol of resistance against the Thai government. One protest leader told the Bangkok Post that the Asok intersection will become a protest base until the Prime Minister steps down. He even said that a permanent structure will be erected at the intersection if Prayut does not resign. Along with restaurants in dark red zones plan to start requiring documents for dine-in services, shoppers may also need to show proof of a vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test to enter shops in malls starting in October. The Department of Health announced the plans for the measure they call the COVID-free setting. The Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration briefly described plans for the COVID-free setting late last month, saying that those in dark red provinces will need to show proof of vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test to enter the businesses that are considered to be a high risk for COVID-19 transmission. The CCSA said a green pass would be issued to those who are fully vaccinated against the coronavirus, and a yellow pass would be issued to those who have tested negative or who have recently recovered from the virus. In Singapore, the country's aviation regulator announced it would approve the return of service of the Boeing 737 MAX. The plane has been grounded for more than 2 years following the 2 fatal crashes. The Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore says the aircraft's operators, which include Singapore Airlines, comply with the airworthiness directives and additional flight crew training requirements. Singapore Airlines also released a statement saying they will work closely with the Aviation Authority to meet other requirements to prepare the 737 MAX planes for takeoff. The 737 MAX returned to service in the United States and Europe. In Malaysia, the country's Civil Aviation Authority also lifted a ban on the operating of the 737 MAX. In southern Thailand, a man and a woman were shot and killed at their home in Nakhon Si Thammarat. Police arrived at the scene at around 9:30 p.m. Sunday night. They say one was shot 3 times in the head and the other was shot 5 times in the head, arm, and leg. They were dead when police arrived. Neighbors say they heard a heated argument followed by gunshots. They say they heard the couple arguing with another person. Police are still looking for the suspect, and officers say they believe the shooter knew the victims well. National park officials in the western province Kanchanaburi arrested 3 hunters who were allegedly caught with bags containing wild animal carcasses, including black hornbills and monkeys. The national park chief says officers were patrolling the forest when they saw 3 men exiting with 2 guns and fertilizer bags. The 3 men were stopped for a search, and in the bags, officials allegedly found the bodies of wild animals, including black hornbills, monkeys, squirrels, a monitor lizard, and a turtle. Several of the animals are listed on the endangered species list in Thailand. Officials also allegedly seized firearms with ammunition, as well as 3 machetes. All 3 men were charged with violating the Wildlife Conservation and Protection Act, the National Park Act, and the Firearm Act. And those are the main headlines. Now back to the show.
And welcome back to Good Morning Thailand. You're watching the show with me, Jay, and Mike.
Hey.
Right, now we'd like to go into our topic of today, Mike, and the topic for today we decided to talk about is how expat life has changed over the years and is currently still changing in Thailand. So just to get into the thick of it, my first question for you, Mike, would be, is Thailand only a place for retirees? Is it still considered as a place, where old people or more mature people come to Thailand and retire and have a great time and live the rest of their life?
It's a good question. I think the demographic of Thailand for expats has changed significantly. If you go back 20 years, you would see a very much a retiree base here and also a young backpacker base here. I think both of these dynamics have really changed over the last 20 years, and there's multiple reasons for this, which we can go into.
Okay. Now, is the demographic changing? So, you like you said, before we had a lot of backpackers coming here, we had a lot of retirees coming here. What would you say, like in Thailand currently, what do you think the demographic of the people are? Are they young? Are they middle-aged? Are they old? What do we have what is a mass expat community in Thailand?
So I think because Thailand is no longer cheap, and that's down to 2 factors. Number one, you have inflation that's happened across Thailand, where prices are much more expensive than they used to be. And the second is the appreciation of the Thai baht. I mean, against European or Western currencies, the Thai baht has got very strong, specifically during this period of the last 5 years that we're in. So things aren't just double as expensive; they're a lot more expensive than they used to be. So I think that whole "is Thailand a cheap destination" is now something that we probably might say is of the past. I mean, it's not cheap to come here, and it's not cheap to eat, or it can be. But I think that whole demographic, you come to Thailand with £200-300 or €300 and you can live for 2 weeks very, very well. You can if you eat, very basic food, but I don't think that exists too much anymore. Even on the islands like Koh Phangan and and Koh Samui, I don't think this is cheap anymore to live on.
Right. So a lot of expats, we're talking about expats who are coming here to basically live here and to work here. So you're right, they would have a certain standard of living. And especially if you've been living in Western cultures and you're coming here with your family, you're right, it could be very expensive. Now, you have this concept called sexpats. Now, a lot of people come to Thailand possibly because of the sex industry. So can you explain to me a little bit about what this is about?
Sure. I'm going to pull up a definition from actually Urban Dictionary, which is quite amusing. So sexpats originate from all major Western countries, yet it's been noted that English, German and Americans make up the vast majority. Sexpats have only 3 motivations: to get drunk, to sleep with hookers, and to survive in Asia as long as possible.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying this was a large demographic that existed, but it's definitely a demographic. I've been here 12, 13 years that I saw existing very early on, and I still see existing today. So I think what we're looking at is, because of the increase in prices and the change in Thailand in general, I think a lot of this demographic is changing and disappearing very quickly.
Yeah, you're right. Over the years, I guess that image of sexpats or people coming for that reason to Thailand has definitely deteriorated, and we're moving more and more away from that. Certain places in Thailand, if we're completely honest, are more known than other places for that specific reason. However, I do believe Thailand is moving in a different direction. Now, let's go back to the topic of expats. Yeah. What nationalities are these expats? Normally, you would think, 40-plus-year-old Westerners. And when I mean Westerners, you're right, German, people from UK, people from America, moving to Thailand for business reasons, for their families, to retire. What nationalities? Are there Asians as well who are moving to Thailand?
So 100%. I think we see it more in the actual Bangkok province as opposed to all the other provinces. But if we look at Bangkok, there's a large Japanese expat community, a large Chinese expat community, South Koreans are there, and there's lots of different Asian communities that exist. But then if you go to more island-based beach resorts, the demographics really do change in relation to who's actually there and what age ranges you have. You usually find an older age range heading towards places like Phuket or or Samui for the beach.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so I guess my last question would be, what is the future of the Thai expat life? So, let's say in the next 5 to 10 years, what would you expect the expat life would be in Thailand? What are the type of people we're going to see? What is the living standard? How are things going to be?
I've seen it. I've lived in Phuket for quite a long time, so I'm actually watching it change very, very quickly and move. They're trying to redefine Thailand as a place for luxury tourism as opposed to for cheap travel. Okay. So I'm watching this change, and things are getting more expensive. New restaurants are opening, which are better food and better quality services, better hotels, better quality of villas and housing that exists. So I think that the quality of life for expats in Thailand is going up exponentially, which is really good for everyone. Yeah. I think, unfortunately, what comes with that is an increase in price. So someone coming over on only a state pension, for example, as a retiree, I would believe would find it difficult now to survive in what would be, a very expensive market here. But what we're seeing is a large movement of international people who are either digital nomads, which is they do their business online, or young entrepreneurs who can work remotely, choosing Thailand as their base. If you look at Bangkok, it's very metropolitan. Huge amounts of co-working spaces, coffee shops, restaurants. The dynamics have changed so quickly. Amazing accommodation everywhere, great projects of condos, good living standards. Very busy place, but it's definitely an interesting place for more of a young, dynamic person now. Yeah. And we're seeing this evolve into some of the fallout markets, like the tourist markets, where they're looking also at co-working, co-living spaces. And so we're watching a very rapidly changing dynamic in Thailand.
Okay. Right, so that's our segment on expat life in Thailand. It's now time for the regional news. We'll be back right after this. Indonesia's COVID-19 restrictions will be eased in more cities on its most populous Java island as a number of infections continue to ease. China will further open its capital markets to foreign investors, adding that it will pursue pragmatic cross-border cooperation to regulate overseas-listed Chinese companies. The Philippines will lift a stay-at-home order in the capital Manila this week as it trials granular lockdowns in a bid to rein in COVID-19 cases and revive the economy. Taiwan warned Honduras on Monday against flashy and false promises by China after the Latin American nation's main opposition party vowed to switch diplomatic recognition to Beijing. Vietnam's capital on Monday extended COVID-19 restrictions for a further 2 weeks, as authorities launched a plan to test up to 1.5 million people for the coronavirus in high-risk areas of the capital to contain a climb in infections. And welcome back to the show. You're watching Good Morning Thailand with Jay and Mike. Mike, let's just quickly talk about Hua Hin for a second. Now, Hua Hin is planning to reopen without quarantine for tourists starting October 1st, and they're calling it the Hua Hin Recharge Scheme. So, I guess they've studied Phuket Sandbox, Samui Plus programs, and they finally decided October 1st will be the day that they're planning to start this. However, people can only fly there through either private jets or commercial flights, either directly into Hua Hin Airport and or connecting flights via Suvarnabhumi. The third option being you get into a van that directly goes from Suvarnabhumi Airport straight to Hua Hin. I don't know how they're going to regulate that. However, once you arrive in Hua Hin and you get a negative test result, you are free to go around anywhere in Hua Hin. It's not a huge city, but I believe that's how the no quarantine is how they're going to try to attract as many tourists as they can. What do you think about this? Do you think it's going to work? Learning from the successes of Samui Plus has unfortunately not done very well. Phuket Sandbox, some think it's good, some think it's bad. What do you think Hua Hin will do?
I think it's limited really impact. I mean, there's not enough people coming through the Sandbox to then do 7+7 in either Samui based vacation or a Hua Hin based vacation. I think it's good to offer this the ability to go there. I mean, the question is what does direct mean if you're going by bus? Mm-hmm. Does that mean you can't stop for the toilet? I mean, it's
basically, I think so. Yeah.
It's quite unclear, and also how they're going to regulate it in the city, because you can obviously travel outside. It's not. There's land that you could just travel straight through to Bangkok or other provinces. So how are they going to stop? Basically passengers moving around. I think that would be quite interesting to see that dynamic. But I really don't think it adds that much value. I think it's more of a PR stunt by. Yeah,
I think it might be more valuable for people who are actually living around Hua Hin. I don't know necessarily if tourists will directly fly into Hua Hin just for Hua Hin. It's perhaps not as attractive as going to Samui or Phuket.
Well, I think at the moment, you can come, if you're looking to get back to Hua Hin, you're an expat that actually lives there, well, at least you can come back for 1 week in the Sandbox and get back to Hua Hin within 1 week as opposed to 2. So there is some small benefits to this, but I think it's going to be limited unless they allow, basically passengers to fly directly into, Samui or Hua Hin. Then, the actual knock-on effect will be very, very small. I think it's just good PR by the tourism of Thailand. And I think that's all it really is.
Right, so that's it for the Hua Hin Recharge Scheme starting October 1st. Hopefully everything goes to plan. Mike, I'd just like to invite the viewers to join our Thaiger Bites show. Now, this is the place where you can address comments directly to Mike, and he will answer your questions, good, bad, or critical. So here's your chance to ask Mike anything, to tell Mike anything, and me. This will be following our show Good Morning Thailand. It normally comes out around 2 p.m. So if you have any questions for us, if you have any comments for us, please leave them in the comments section below. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe to our channel. That's it from us here at the Thaiger Studio. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jason, behind the buttons. Have a great Tuesday. Starting up in the capital, and we do have some light showers on the way, but good air quality up in Bangkok. Temperatures of 28 and 29 degrees in the next 2 days, down to 25 and 23 in the evenings. Moving on to the Sandbox, after heavy rainfall over the weeks, we still have some showers coming up. Moderate air quality with tops of 28 degrees during the day. To the northeast of Thailand to Nakhon Ratchasima, and we have some very good air quality with temperatures of 28 and 27 throughout the coming days. Still a little sunshine, clouds, and also a bit of rain. And as we move to the north of Thailand in Chiang Mai, we still have good weather, topping off at 32 degrees on Tuesday and slowly cooling to 29 in the next couple of days. Still some mixed weather with a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of clouds, and still some rain. Now moving on to Sha'am, very good air quality with 27 degrees on a Tuesday morning with some sunshine and also some rain, going down to 29 in the next couple of days. And now moving to Ban Lamung in Chonburi, very good air quality with an average temperature of 25 degrees, starting off at 27 degrees on a Tuesday morning and moving slightly upwards on a Thursday to 28. There seems to be showers all across Thailand and Ban Lamung is one of the included.